Hello and welcome to my Solasta Crown the Master Druid Class Guide, levels 1 to 8. I'm your host, Methfu. So if this guide managed to help you out even a tiny little bit, please smash that like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. Alright, let's go. So in this guide, I'm going to be going over the most optimal way to build a druid at the start of the game. So let's make a new character. Let's go. So our druid is going to be a spellcaster druid. So the two races that come to mind when I want to build a spellcaster druid is actually between the Hill Dwarf, dun dun dun, and once again the Sylvan Elf. Obviously Sylvan Elf is always amazing. Let's start with the Hill Dwarf and have a look through at what they can do. So 5 movement, one of the lowest movement in the game. Then we have ability score increase Constitution +2. I say for a druid, the main stats are Wisdom, Constitution, and Dex. So having Constitution +2 is very nice to have. Dwarven Resilience, saving throw advantage against poison, resistance to poison damage. I mean, it's okay. It's, you know, it's there. It's nothing like amazing. Some encounters can be like really strong, but most encounters it's not really going to do much or have any relevance. Then what Dwarven Combat Training, proficient with battle axe, hand axe, warhammer, not really relevant to us either. Heavy armor training, unaffected by heavy armor penalties. Once again, not very relevant to us because we are druid. We're literally going to be using leather armor. Then we've got Hill Dwarf lineage features. Ability score increase Wisdom +1. Wisdom's one of our main stats. Dwarven toughness +1 hit point per level. Very strong passive, that one. Over to dark vision. See normally in dim light and in natural darkness as if in dim light. So once again, darkness is real terror in this game. If you have no way of seeing in the dark, you will be royally screwed. Languages, common dwarvish. Once again, literally mix up your languages between your characters. Make sure you're not overlapping too much. Right, and let's have a look at Sylvan Elf now. So Sylvan Elf, literally the master race of the game. Then we've got ability score increase, Dex +2. As I said before, Dex, Wisdom, Con. Main stats as Druid, favoring Wisdom and Constitution way more than Dex, but still, Dex is nice to have on Druid. Fey Ancestry, saving throw advantage against charm, immunity to magical sleep, really strong passive. Dark vision, see normally in dim light and in natural darkness, as if in dim light. Once again, darkness is really strong in this game. Keen senses, proficient in the perception skill, always nice to have as well. Perception is one of the best skills to actually take. And on top of that, we're going to have high wisdom, which will help with the perception in the first place. Trance, 4 hours of meditation are sufficient to rest. Not really that noticeable, but it's okay to have. Sylvan Elf lineage features movement 7. So this is one of the main reasons you want to take a Sylvan Elf, having that much mobility, especially since the Dwarf only has 5. The Sylvan Elf has 7. That's actually a big movement range there. The Sylvan Elf literally have effectively 2 more tiles of movement that gives you more possibilities to be able to move in combat and do more plays. Ability score increase, Wisdom +1. Once again, Wisdom's one of the main stats as a druid. Elf weapon training, proficient with long sword, short bow, long bow. Doesn't really affect us that much either. Sylvan adaptability, proficient in the survival and athletic skills. Advantage on survival when hunting, nice to have. Languages, common, elvish, dwarvish, and halfling. Once again, sort it out between all your characters. Okay, so for the basis of this guide, we're going to be picking the master race itself. Sylvan Elf wins once again. Let's go next. So we are doing a druid guide. We're going to pick a druid. So I'm going to skip through most of this. Just have a look at this really quickly. You cannot wear any armor made of metal. That's fairly relevant. So in equipment, we're literally just going to keep the wooden shield on and put on a quarterstaff instead of the scimitar. So let's validate that and go next. So background tab, I said it once, I'll say it again, I am a broken record. Whatever your party consists of and the classes you have really affects what you pick for your backgrounds, for your characters. So say for example, for my druid, because I have a specific party in mind, I'm going to be taking academic just so we have access to enchanter, proficient with the Manakalan Rosary. So it allows me to be able to enchant items with my low intellect stat, but at least I can enchant items still. So over to here, background personality flags. You pick the flavor for your character, the personality you want them to have. And let's go next into the stat screen. So this is where the fun begins once again. This is where the magic happens, baby. Starting with strength. So we're going to bring strength up to 11. So this is great for jumping, climbing. As I said before, you do not want this at a minus because you will notice some severe effects during combat when you're trying to jump across a ledge and you suddenly like fall over and miss your whole turn. So Dex, we're going to bring that up to 14 just for the AC, much needed AC for the beginning of the game and later on in the game as well. Dex is always nice to have on a druid. Then our Constitution, we're going to bring it up to 15 for now. We need to have more HP. Big HP is nice to have on Druid as well. Very strong, allows me to take more hits in the early game and this keeps me churning out spells more often. Intellect, we're going to bring that up to 10. Just 10 for now. It's kind of like a dump stat, just so we're able to enchant a few things every now and then. So Wisdom's our main stat. We're going to bring that one all the way up to 16, ready to go. Literally everything we do involves Wisdom. So all our casting, etc., our chance to hit, that is literally all Wisdom based. So Wisdom's literally our main stat. Then Charisma is a dump stat. We don't really need Charisma as a druid. I mean, we can turn into animals. Why would we need Charisma? So just to raise a point here between the Sylvan Elf and the Hill Dwarf. So as you can see, the Sylvan Elf has 11 strength. The Hill Dwarf has 12. So the Hill Dwarf is in effect slightly more efficient. So the deciding factor between the Hill Dwarf and the Sylvan Elf literally boils down to the racials. So obviously the Dwarf has toughness, gets more HP every level it goes up. And on top of that, it has resistances to poison. Then we've got the Sylvan Elf, who gets 2+ movement tiles. And on top of that, gets Fate Ancestry. That gives me a bit of resistance to enchanting effects. So between the two, I'm literally going to be sacrificing 1 strength, the Dwarf racial, that gives me a bit more hit points. Obviously the poison resistance saving throw thing, versus 2 movement tiles. I'm pretty sure that 2 movement tiles is winning that battle. Having that extra mobility in combat is very strong. Over to the Proficiencies tab. So as you can see here, we've got 3 choices. We've got Animal Handling, we've got Medicine, and we've got Religion. So Animal Handling, there's a little icon here thing. Although part of the rule set and valid for role-playing purposes, this element is not used in the Crown of Master main campaign. It also says it's not even used in the Lost Valley DLC as well. So there's not much point taking Animal Handling here unless you're doing custom campaigns. So I'm going to take Medicine and Religion because it's literally a no-brainer kind of choice. So once again with the languages, just make sure you kind of space them out between your characters. Some of the languages aren't even in effect in the main actual campaign of the game, once again. So just kind of pick whatever. I'm going to take Orcish and Ode Tamarin just because they actually work. Let's go next. So I'm not going to really go into massive detail about all the spells. That's going to take a long time. I'm just going to give them like a rating out of 5 and kind of pick the ones that are good and give a brief little detail about them. So Annoying Bee, fairly decent. It's useful to take out concentration on bosses if they have like a nasty aura. So I'll give that like a 3 out of 5. Then we've got Guidance. I'll give that also a 3 out of 5. It's normally good to use on your like your rogue, your thief, whatever, to lockpick. Then we've got Poison Spray. Poison Spray, I'll give that like a 1 out of 5. I don't really think that's very good at all. And on top of that, it's a saving throw of Con. Con saving throws are probably one of the highest saving throws in the game for most monsters. So having that as a cantrip and just doesn't really do that much. Then we've got Produce Flame. This is actually very buggy. It kind of like messes up all the time. So I'll give that a 0 out of 5, I think. Just because half the time it doesn't really work or it just seems to bug out. It doesn't really do that much compared to some of the other cantrips as well. Then we've got Resistance. Once again, I'll give that like a 1 out of 5. It's just not that great to have. It's okay. It's just not amazing. Then we've got Shalag. Not sure if I butchered that name or not, but I don't really care in the first place. So this I would actually give a 3 out of 5. If your druid kind of gets like chunked on by melee people and they're kind of in his face and you can't, you know, disengage out, then you can just switch to this really quickly and kind of smack them about a tiny bit. Just some added damage just in case you can't disengage away. Then we've got Sparkle. Sparkle, I'll give that like a 3 out of 5 again. So Sparkle, I say it's fairly strong if you've got things to light up. But otherwise, it's just, yeah, it's okay. You know, it's just kind of there. There's other ways to light up objects. Obviously, you got like other cantrips as well that are pretty strong, like light. And you also got torches. You also got other things of like ways of getting light on things. So Sparkle isn't necessarily that great. It's okay. It's average. Then we've got Venomous Spike. I'll give this like a 4 or 5 out of 5, I think. Just because it's literally one of the only cantrips that actually scale and does fairly good damage. It's a ranged attack as well. It means I don't have to get right in someone's face and kind of leave my squishy druid to get smacked on when I want my tank in the front. So we're going to take Venomous Spike as one of our cantrips, and we're going to take Shalalag as the second one. I think I butchered it even more that time. So once again, whatever you want your character to look like, you kind of design your character how you want it to look and go ahead. I'm going to name it Druid because it's a Druid guide and finish. Right, so let's start leveling this bad boy up. So level 2, here we go. So we're getting some hit points. We've got Druid Circle. At second level, you choose a Druid Circle that further expresses your relationship to nature. We also get some more spell slots. We also unlock a new class feature, which is Wild Shaped. You can use your action to magically assume the shape of a beast, defined by your Druid level. Higher levels allow stronger shapes or forms of motion. You can use this feature twice. You regain expanded uses when you finish a short or long rest. So the thing about Wild Shape is it has no scaling. So at the beginning of the game, it's really goddamn strong. From like levels 1 to 6 or levels 1 to 5, really strong because it actually gives you like an extra HP pool as well. So if your druid starts getting messed up, you can switch straight into like an animal, a wild shape and something, and you have another HP pool as well, so you don't hit the ground and die a horrible, horrendous death. It actually kind of helps you transition smoothly into the mid game just because of the fact that it gives you extra HP pool, and also it gives you something else to do once you run out of spells, or if you get bombarded by people. Later on in the game, it falls off very hard. As I said, it has no scaling on it apart from to your level, so you know your stats make a difference to it at all, which means it really, really sucks later on in the game. It doesn't really do any damage, so later on in the game, you'll just be using it as a get out jail free card and using it for the extra HP that it provides. Okay, so moving on to Druid Circle choices. Let's start with Circle of the Land. So, Circle of the Land gets a bonus cantrip. Learn a Druid cantrip of your choice. The Druid cantrips aren't amazing, nothing to write home about, but it's free stuff, can't say no. Natural recovery once per day. When you complete a short rest, you can recover a number of expended spell slots, max 5th level up to half your druid level rounded up. So very similar to the wizard passive as well. You can recover spells, it means you can cast more. It's all good stuff. On to Circle of the Kindred Spirit. So spirit choice, choose a spirit to bond to, grants a bonus to the bonded druid. So kind of like a pet kind of subclass. And I think the best choices out of the two of them is literally Spirit Bear and Spirit Wolf. So those two are probably the best choices there. Then we've got Spirit Call, using action to call your kindred spirit to a spot within 6 cells. If the spirit dies, you must complete a long rest before you can call it again. So as you read there, if you lose your spirit for whatever reason, you have to long rest once again to use it. So the only reason you'll be picking the subclass is to use your pet. So obviously if you lose it, that means you're losing a lot of usefulness for that subclass. Then we have Spirit Bond. Your kindred spirit has the following features: proficiency bonuses, druids proficiency bonuses, attack roll, druids melee spell attack, saving throws equals druids saving throws, int is always 8. Advantage to attack on enemies engaged with the druid or the druid's allies. If the kindred spirit dies, the druid sustains 3d6 psychic damage and is stunned for the remainder of the turn unless unconscious. After a short rest, the kindred spirit regains the same HP as the druid does from spending hit die. So as you read there, it does have some scaling built into it, so it's actually not, you know, a load of crap later on. But as you read here, if this thing dies, 3d6 psychic damage is quite a big chunk of change in the early game on your druid that can almost kill you or put you into dying state. And then later on, it doesn't matter so much the 3d6 because you have obviously a lot more HP, but that stun is still real terror. Getting stunned really, really sucks. Missing a go in a game with low kind of action economy is very, very crap. So Circle of the Wind. So carried by the wind, casting spell of level 1 or higher makes you automatically take the disengage action for free and gain 10 plus movement speed until the end of your turn. So this is kind of like a rogue kind of druid spec. You kind of get in there, hit a few things, run out again. You can get out really easily, as you can see, because you've got a free disengage and you've got a lot of movement. So you're kind of like a hit and run specialist, kind of like a rogue druid hybrid. Moving on to Circle of Balance. So Circle of Balance spells in your list and always prepared. Level 3 Prayer of Healing, pretty decent. Calm Emotions, also decent as well. Then we've got level 5 Mass Healing Word, great spell. Revivify, obviously if something dies you need to bring it back, so might as well have it. Level 7 we've got Banishment. Banishment's a pretty decent spell. Blight's not too bad, even though it's got con save. It does pretty good damage though if you actually manage to get past the con save. Then level 9 we've got Mass Cure Wounds. Mass Cure Wounds is great for healing everything. Cloud Kill is not a bad spell either. Obviously you don't want to engage with the enemy in a Cloud Kill though, because you'll be killing yourself. But it's still nice to put on probably the archers, or if you can kind of like seclude some enemies out of range of your kind of melee front line. Then we've got Gift of Life. Whenever you use a level 1 or higher spell to restore hit points to a creature, they also regain an additional number of hit points equal to your level at the start of your next turn. So this actually looks kind of weak, but it's not. It's actually really goddamn strong. That extra kind of Gift of Life, you literally use like any kind of healing spell you got. Obviously you got loads of healing spells as this subclass. And they also gain HP on their next turn. So in other words, you can probably avoid an extra hit before you go down again, just because of the Gift of Life. And even if you're kind of like healing up, like randomly using like, you know, the small heals, this actually makes the smaller heals even stronger as well. So this is actually very, very solid kind of passive. Let's have a look at the higher level as well, because we're going to be picking the Circle of Balance as our druid for this guy. So we've got Survival of the Wisest. Your spells are more effective against creatures you already faced. You gain a bonus equal to half your knowledge level, rounded up, to your spell DC and spell attack modifier against them. So what this kind of means is that your spells have another +2 to hit whatever enemy you want to hit. A +2 to your kind of hit chance on your spells is massive. It's absolutely massive. Anyone will tell you that, especially on the highest difficulties when the enemies have really high spell saves and they're actually a lot harder to hit. This makes a big difference. This is really solid passive. Now at level 10 we've got Cold Embrace. Whenever you damage an opponent with a spell, they are unable to heal any HP until the start of your next turn. So it comes a bit late in the day. Level 10's very late in the game. But at the same time, it's pretty strong. I can see it be useful on some encounters where the enemies kind of heal themselves up or regenerating, but it's not that great. But with the whole kit included, this is a really strong, solid kit. Slightly boring, but sometimes boring is very strong. And as you can see, this is literally chocked pack of goodies ready to go. It can literally replace a cleric as well because of the amount of healing it brings to the table. And let's finish. Level 3. Your druid is now level 3. So we're getting more hit points. We're getting some more spell slots. Right, so level 4 now. So we gain more hit points. We gain another cantrip to select. And we also get some more spell slots. So we also get ability score increase as well. So let's go next and let's pump that straight into wisdom to allow us to hit our spells more. Over to cantrips. So we don't really have many choices left here. So it's going to be between guidance and sparkle, I feel like the lock picking, I can get around it with like a knock spell if I have a wizard or if I have a sorcerer. I feel like sparkle can be useful in certain situations. Very situational, but most of the cantrips are. So I'm going to take sparkle instead. Up to level 5. So once again, we gain more hit points. We also increase 3 to all attacks, saving throws, skill and tool checks, and our spell DC. Our save DC is increased to 15, our spell attack is increased to +7, and we gain some more spell slots once again, and we finish. Level 6, here we come. Some more hit points, more spell slots, and we have now unlocked class features, Survival of the Wisest. Your spells are more effective against creatures you already faced. You gain a bonus equal to half your knowledge level rounded up to your spell DC and spell attack modifier against them. Once again, as I said, this adds like pretty much +2 to all your kind of like spell attack rolls against creatures. Up to level 7 now. So we're getting some more hit points, getting some more spell slots. Finish once again. Up to level 8. So more hit points once again, some more spell slots, and we get another ability score increase. So we're going to go next. I want to pump that wisdom all the way up to the highest it can go because we are druid and that is our main stat and we need that very high. Right, so before we wrap things up, I'm going to quickly go over the druid spells from levels 1 to 8 just to kind of give a rating out of 5 as well, and also give a brief kind of description of what I think of them. Spell lists are kind of subjective, so it really depends on your playstyle and how you find the spells work for you rather than a set in stone kind of thing, because some people have better results than others using different kind of spells. So anyway, let's start with Animal Friendship. I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5. It's a beast spell, it's situational, so in other words, there's not always beasts in the game. You can't always use a spell. I like spells that are kind of universal and you can use all the time. So yeah, it's okay, 2 out of 5. Then Charm Person, I've never really seen the use of this at all. I'm going to give that a 0 out of 5. Cure Wounds, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. 2 reasons. 1, its range is touch. The second reason, it has casting time action, so that means my whole action gets taken by healing things up. Most time when you're healing, you're not trying to out heal someone's damage that's hitting you. You're trying to pick someone up from a big dirt nap. So compared to Healing Word, which is a bonus action, that means I can still attack and pick someone up from a dirt nap. It kind of pales in comparison to that. It obviously has more healing than Healing Word, but being able to attack or do something else and also be able to pick someone up from the brink of death means that Healing Word is a lot better than Cure Wounds. Then we've got Detect Magic. In my experience, I haven't really come across anything in the campaigns, regarding this. It's just, I don't see it really that useful and utility wise. I feel like it would be probably in some custom campaigns, or maybe it's better on pen and paper. But literally in this game, it's not that great. I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5. Then we've got Detect Poison and Disease. So I'm able to sense the location of poisonous creatures and diseases within 6 cells around me. I mean, why would it? Why? What's the point in that? Honest, what is the point in this spell? Within 6 tiles? I mean, by then they're probably still attacking me. They're probably in combat with me unless they're invisible. So yeah, I'm going to give this a 0 out of 5. Then we've got Entangle. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. Very strong early game kind of CC. On top of that, the creature has a disadvantage on the dexterity saving throws, which makes this even stronger than it already was. Very fire. 2 out of 5. Situational once again. Can be useful in some combats, but most of the time it's probably better to do something else. Then we've got Fog Cloud. So this is very strong at the beginning of the game when you don't have many concentration spells. But later on, the concentration part of it is kind of its downfall because Druid has so many concentration spells in the first place. You really don't want to be using a concentration slot on a level 1 kind of Fog Cloud. So at the beginning of the game, yeah, fair enough. It's good to kind of destroy the archers, mess them up, ruin their day, rain on their parade. But later on, it becomes a bit redundant. I'll give this a 3 out of 5. So Goodberry, I'll give this a 5 out of 5. It's a really extremely solid spell. Number one, you don't have to carry around rations with you. That stops that whole silly little mini game where you have to go up to the merchant, buy rations, take them with you, and take up all your kind of carry weight because they weigh a ton. Number two, you can use them in combat, which means instead of using your health pots, you can literally run up to an ally and pick them up for like 1 HP. So they're back on their feet again. 5 out of 5 for healing words. So as I said before, versus cure wounds, this is a touch spell. Does more healing, obviously. But, you know, it takes an action, whereas healing word doesn't. It's a bonus action, so that means I can attack and use this at the same time, which makes it really, really goddamn strong. So, jump, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. At the beginning of the game, when your jump is limited and you don't have as many spells to be able to like levitate, fly, all that kind of thing, jump's really useful of getting to ledges and get to chests that you wouldn't normally be able to reach. Then we've got Long Strider. I'm going to say 4 out of 5 because it's pretty damn strong. You're increasing your allies' movement by 2 tiles. That is nothing to laugh at. That's insane, actually, especially on a dwarf or a halfling. That literally puts them up to a Sivan Elf Master Race movement. Pretty crazy, nice level 1 spell. Then we've got Thunder Wave, so I give this a 3 out of 5. It's pretty good utility, but same time, if you position yourself correctly, you're not going to be surrounded by that many enemies to be able to kind of make use of the knockback on everything and the damage. So, yeah, 3 out of 5. I think it's pretty good for the spell. Level 2 spell time, so Bart Skin, 2 out of 5. Mainly it's because most of the people I'll be using on will already have an AC of higher than 16 anyway. Then we've got Calm Emotions, really good. 4 out of 5, I would say. Being able to stop yourself from being charmed or frightened is very solid in most fights, I would say. Then Dark Vision, nearly every single kind of like race has some sort of Dark Vision, so this is pretty much useful in humans. I'm going to say 1 out of 5 just because you need to help the humans out a tiny bit because they're kind of struggling in this game. Then Enhanced Ability, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 just because it increases your chances of hitting those skill checks. Find Traps, I'll give it 2 out of 5. There's not many traps in this game at all. Flame Blade, the downfall for this ability is that it's a concentration ability. As I said before, druids have a lot of concentration abilities and they have a lot better ones in this tier. So yeah, Flame Blade, I'll give you like a 2 out of 5. Flaming Spear, I used to really like this, but it's quite buggy sometimes. I'll give it a 3 out of 5 just because it's fairly okay damage. Then we've got Heat Metal. Once again, it's concentration ability, same as Flaming Spear. Once again, Druid has so many concentration spells and you can only use 1 concentration at a time. So this is very situational as well because it only kind of works on metal or, you know, enemies that have armor on. So in other words, I give this a 1 out of 5 because it's situational. I feel like Flame Spears is slightly better anyway because you kind of move it around. Then we've got Hold Person. I give this a 4 out of 5 just because it's a wisdom saving throw. Being able to hold things is nice, but obviously it's quite situational. So depending on what campaign you're doing and how many enemies you're facing that are actually kind of like, you know, humanoid, so to speak, is depending how useful this will be. So it probably ranges between a 3 to a 4 out of 5, I would say, depending on the campaign. Then we've got Lesser Restoration. It's pretty strong. Just kind of move like, you know, paralyzed, disease, blinded, poison, all that kind of random stuff that's going to mess up your day. I'll give that a 3 out of 5 just for utility. Moonbeam, I give this a 4 out of 5. It does really good damage. It's literally like the big daddy to Flaming Spear and Heat Metal and all this other random concentration stuff. It's a very solid level 2 spell. You can move it around. Yeah, it's just very strong. It does radiant damage as well. A lot of things are weak to radiant damage. Barely anything resists that. The only problem with it is that it's a con saving throw and a lot of the enemies have very high con. Then we've got Prayer of Healing. I give this a 3 out of 5. We have to take it anyway because it is part of our subclass. It's pretty strong though, especially with our passive that allows us to heal up even more on the following turn. So yes, this is very strong. Then we've got Protection for Poison. I'm not really scared of poison in games like this unless I'm doing like a campaign where it says spiders everywhere and spider queens and spider kings. But yeah, I'm not really that fast. I give that, yeah, 2 out of 5. Just for the utility. Sometimes it will come in handy, obviously against something really massive, big spider that wants to kind of kill you. That'd be useful, but otherwise, yeah, it's very situational. Then we've got Spike Growth. So I give this a 5 out of 5. It's kind of like the big daddy to Entangle. It doesn't root them in place. It doesn't like decrease their kind of dexterity saving throws or reflex saving throws. It kind of just does solid damage, as in it does damage, it slows them down, there's no saving throw against it, so they literally are getting screwed whether they like it or not. There's no way to resist this bad boy. Right, so moving on to level 3 spells. So Cool Lightning, I give it a 3 out of 5. Does fairly okay damage, lasts for a good time as well, but the downfall to the spell is that it's another concentration spell. Once again, druids have so many concentration spells in the first place, so it's okay. Then we've got Conjure Animal. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. It's one of the strongest summons in the game. I just feel like the druid has kind of better things to do with his time than use a concentration slot on Conjure Animal. That should be more for the ranger. Then we've got Daylight. Daylight, I give this a 5 out of 5. I really love Daylight. There's a lot of undead in this game. And literally, just putting Daylight on an undead like a vampire really screws them over. So it's really strong to have. It's situational, I agree. And I have marked down other spells for being situational. But in this game, there's so many undeads, there's so many vampires and stuff. It's not even situational at that point. It's actually kind of universal. Dispel Magic, I give it a 4 out of 5. It's very useful to move any sort of big bad spells that the enemy elite or boss has cast on themselves. Just kind of like peel it off them straight away. It's very nice. Mass Healing Word, I give it a 5 out of 5. Number 1, it's got a bonus action. Number 2, it's kind of like the big brother to Healing Word over here, because you can just hit multiple people with it. And coupled with the passive that this druid has, the Circle Balance druid, it makes it really strong, because obviously once I've hit everyone with that, instantly heal up to 6 allies. You can see they're going to be healed for the next turn as well, depending on my level at the time. Protection from Energy, 4 out of 5. Loads of spells get slung around this game. Acid, Code, Fire, Lightning, Thunder Resistance. You know, someone's going to do that at some point during the campaign, so why wouldn't you take that? Revivify, I get this for free anyway because it's my subclass. It costs a diamond, 300 gold. That's quite a bit at the beginning of the game, obviously. Later on, it doesn't really matter so much, but it's still fairly expensive. Sometimes mistakes happen. Sometimes you will lose someone and have to use this, so it's nice to have it. In general, I give it a 3 out of 5 just because it's sometimes situational. Sleet Storm, 2 out of 5. It does no damage. It's a concentration spell. It also puts down difficult terrain, which can be a double-edged sword for your own melee as well. Wind Wall, 3 out of 5. It's a strength saving throw. Other than that, it's fairly good to like kind of block, you know, arrows, boats and stuff to force the archers to come to you. But the strength saving throw kind of lets it down a bit because most of the enemies have very high strength and very high con. Banishment, 4 out of 5. So it's a charisma saving throw. Most time, monsters aren't very charismatic unless they're like kind of like the evil villain and you kind of grow to like them a tiny bit during the show. Most of the time, the monsters don't have a shred of charisma. On top of that, Celestials, Fiends, and Elementals are quite in abundance, so you will come across a lot of them, and you will have a chance to use this. Blight, I give it a 3 out of 5, just because it has very high damage. The only problem it has going for it is that it's a con saving throw, and as I said before, and I'll say it again, I'll probably say it again in another guide, con is one of the highest saving throws for most monsters, and so is strength. Confusion, I give it a 4 out of 5, just because it has a saving throw of Wisdom. Normally, Wisdom's quite a low saving throw for most monsters. It can be quite RNG, random number generator, depending what the creature does. Sometimes you can confuse them and they'll run up and smack you anyway. And sometimes they just walk away. You know, it really depends on how lucky you get. Conjure Minor Elementals, I give it a 1 out of 5. They nerfed it recently, so it's nowhere near as strong as it used to be. It's still okay to kind of soak up some hits here and there, but the nerf really didn't do it any justice. Dominate Beast, 2 out of 5. Situational. There's a fair amount of beasts, but at the same time, why would you want to dominate them anyway? It's a concentration spell. You can probably just kill them. Most of the time, the beasts aren't really the ones that are hurting you the most. Normally, the beasts are kind of like the cannon fodder or the leveling up on them until you get to level 5 kind of creatures. Freedom of movement, I give this a 4 out of 5 just because it removes any sort of movement restrictions. Movement restrictions really annoy me, so I'm maybe slightly biased to this. I also don't like being paralyzed or restrained or any sort of thing like that. I like to be able to like move and do what I want to do during battle and not have all this like crappy, like, you know, grease on the floor, banana peels. I don't want any of that kind of stopping me from doing what I want to do. Giant Insect, 2 out of 5. Concentration spell. Once again, druids, they just need to be doing other things rather than having the concentration on the kind of like summoning thing. It's more like a ranger's job, I feel, at this point in time. I feel like the druid can put out a lot of damage, especially in this spec as well. I've got +2 to my spell checks to hit people, so I might as well be making use of that and not use my concentration on summons. Then we've got Ice Storm, 4 out of 5, I would give it. Number 1, it has a dex saving throw. I love dex saving throws. Number 2, it has bludgeoning damage. It also has cold damage as well, which is one of the lowest resisted elemental types in the game compared to fire. And it's not a concentration spell. Stone Skin, 2 out of 5, just because it costs money, and it's also a concentration spell as well. So it's kind of like a double whammy of crapness there. It's fairly good utility in some fights, but most of the time, I don't want to be spending that kind of money. Coming towards the end of our spell list, so Wall of Fire, I give it a range between 3 and 5. Depending on the fight, sometimes when you're like in a bottleneck, it can be really powerful. If you position it correctly on certain landscapes and fights, this is very strong. But if the area is too open, the enemies will kind of just walk around it or try and find another way of avoiding the damage. But if you can keep them in it, I feel like it goes up to a 5 or 4. Right, so that's it for our Druid class guide for beginners. So if you've got any suggestions or what you want me to do next or any classes you want me to do a guide for, please let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.